Attachment theory. If our linguistic and some cognitive abilities are age specific, what other aspects of our development is age specific? Psychologists like Sigmund Freud and Konrad Lorenz argued that infants are attached to the first caregiver or moving object they encounter. In other words, we are programmed to seek attachment to the person or object nearest to us. But in reality, it's far more complicated than that. John Bowlby, born in 1907, died in 1990, was a British psychologist who wanted to study how babies bond with their mothers, arguing that this might be an innate survival trait. Following Freud's assertion that children become attached to their caregivers because they fulfill their physiological needs like food, Bowlby believed that this genetic bond is always with a female figure more than a male figure. If this bond is broken, the negative consequences would remain with the child throughout his or her life. In the 1950s, he studied children who were evacuated during World War II and raised in large institutions. These kids didn't have a bond with any female figure like their mother, so to speak. He found that this experience negatively influenced the children's intellectual, social, and emotional abilities. And in extreme cases, the maternal deprivation caused what he termed as affectionless psychopathy. A lot of the children ended up becoming thieves or developed juvenile delinquencies and antisocial behaviors. A great rendition of this idea is depicted in a Hungarian novel, The Notebook Trilogy by Agota Kristof, in which during the war, two boys were separated from their mother and did develop a sense of amoral behavior. Bowlby also argued that the role of the father was not as strong as a mother, especially at a younger age, as a father's role is more provisioning and protection. He was, however, criticized for minimizing the role of the father. Later research found that a father is as good a parent as a mother. So to sum up, Bowlby found that we are biologically programmed to be attached to a female figure. Why female figure? Well, the simple answer, according to Freud, is that our first source of food is a mother, or a cupboard love, as he called it. So biologically speaking, it makes sense to get attached to your first local restaurant that gives you free food for months through breastfeeding. However, this view is challenged by other psychologists. Harry Harlow, born in 1905, died in 1981, was one of those psychologists who challenged Freud's cupboard love theory. Harlow studied macaque infants separated from their mothers. He set up an experiment in which he would give them fake surrogate mothers, one with wire in which a bottle of milk was attached and the other just soft cuddly cloth. If Freud was correct, the infants would only stay with the mother who gave them milk. But it turned out the baby monkeys stayed with the cuddly cloth far more and used it as a shield to protect themselves when there was a terrifying noise. It turned out the baby monkeys needed a mother not just for feeding them, but also protecting them and giving them that soft, cushiony environment that was safe. So attachment went beyond the mere physiological need. It is a base, foundation, or platform upon which babies explore the world. Harlow's 1957 to 1963 study had a huge influence on parenting in the decades that followed. The role of the parents was to make sure children grow up in the most protected and softest environment possible. You could say that the current generation of snowflakes are the children of the parents who grew up in the 1970s, the 80s, experiencing overparenting themselves. Joking aside, parenting used to be more about providing enough food some centuries ago. But in recent decades, since food is so readily available that some parents thinking they were not doing enough and overcompensating and creating a safer space, perhaps too cuddly space that some people never had the chance to grow up a thicker skin. So much so that children cannot even play in parks anymore in case their knees are skinned. Today, universities have become a safe space where criticism or simple words are banned. Okay, let me stop here before I offend someone. So to conclude, Harlow's monkey studies showed that attachment goes beyond just food, but also security. It makes sense. Babies need a lot of food and a lot of safe space. Today, a lot of people in some rich countries are obese but also with a fragile personality. I should really shut up. But how do you balance between protection and independence? If babies grow up too attached, they don't develop independence and strong character. So our next psychologist tackled this question heads on. Mary Ainsworth, born in 1913 and died in 1999, who worked with John Bowlby, wanted to find out how babies become independent from their attachment. Her research focused on baby and mother interactions. During her study, she placed a 1-year-old baby and their mother in a room. She observed their interaction before and after a stranger entered the room, as well as a period in which the baby was alone with the stranger. She specifically focused on how the baby reacted when the mother returned to the room. She concluded 3 patterns, which she termed as 3 attachment types: secure, anxious avoidant, and anxious resistant. About 70% of babies had secure attachment, meaning they were distressed when the mother left, but still happily continued to play with the stranger. About 15% of the babies didn't care when their mothers left, so Ainsworth called them anxious avoidant. Another 15% became very anxious in the presence of a stranger, so she called them anxious resistant. She concluded that how a mother meets the needs of their children creates these attachment types. However, others have criticized her, arguing that attachment is not permanent, but always subject to change as babies develop. So how do you grow up to become less dependent on your parents? One way we develop autonomy is through expression. G. Stanley Hall, born in 1844 and died in 1924, was an American psychologist. He combined Darwinian evolution with Romanticism literature. The 18th century Sturm and Drang, Storm and Stress, is a collection of Romanticist literature and music that emphasized romantic expression as young people experience love. One of the most famous novels in this genre is The Sorrow of Young Werther by the father of German literature, Goethe, in which love is seen as a volcanic eruption, especially in teenagers. The desire for sex is nature's expression as love in young adult humans. So Stanley Hall observed this individual expression during adolescence as an emotional turmoil and rebellion between the age of 11 and 15. This is a period, historically speaking, a child was leaving the nest for a nest of their own, so they would fall in love while pursuing a mate, as well as seeking acceptance. Quote, "Adolescence is when the very worst and best impulses in the human soul struggle against each other for possession. As a result of this titanic emotional battle, we develop a sense of autonomy for our early attachment. So girls leave their father in search of a husband, and boys leave their mother in search of a wife. This stereotype of men searching for a second mother and girls for a second father and their future partner seems apt. This is beautifully depicted in the world's first novel written 1,000 years ago, one of the most psychological novels of Japanese literature, The Tale of Genji, in which the main character, Prince Genji, is searching for a perfect wife that resembles his own mother. So we saw that some of our early childhood developments are innate. For example, we have an innate ability to learn language, learn skills, and even get attached at a specific age. But they do not happen in vacuum, so just as culture is needed to grow bacteria, we humans also need a culture to grow and develop in.